Hello, friends. Chris and Jen Coursey here from Thrive Today, and we want to welcome you to the Relational Skills in Real Life podcast. Friends, today is a very special day. We are celebrating our 1 year anniversary of starting this podcast.
So 1 year, it's like a birthday celebration for the podcast. And in our house, when we have a birthday celebration, one of the things we like to do is look back at some of the highlights from the last year and look forward in terms of what are we anticipating in the new year? What are we excited about and what's coming up? So Chris, what are you excited about? What did you enjoy? What was a highlight from the year?
One of my favorite things about this podcast is one, the chance to talk about relational skills. I love talking about relational skills, how they've changed my life, how God has used them in my family and my community. And you know what else I enjoy is the chance to hear stories from our friends. That's right. I think that is one of my favorite things about this podcast. We have amazing friends who are sharing their stories and their testimonies of how relational skills have touched and transformed their lives.
Yeah, I think I those are some of my favorite things too about the podcast. And I know that you guys who are listening, many of you have jumped in later. You didn't start at the very beginning. And yet, interestingly, one of our most listened to podcasts is our first couple podcasts, because even if somebody jumps in at episode 30, let's say, they like to go back and listen to those first couple episodes that hear a little bit about the history and the why of what we're doing. So that's always a fun place to start, to get to hear the story of something.
There's a fun story of how all of this really started, and we love to share that story. And I agree. I think a lot of people really wanted to hear the story of how did this start? What is this all about? Because you know what? We don't hear a lot about relational skills. We've been doing this a long time. And thankfully, more and more people are learning and hearing about relational skills than ever before. And more importantly, people are starting to practice and experience relational skills. And that's really the core of what we do with this podcast. We talk about how you can learn and spread the good stuff, grow some joy, learn to rest, get back to joy and peace from your upsetting emotions, what we call the 19 skills.
And, we've been practicing these relational skills for 20 plus years, right? And yet we're still finding ways that they are improving and growing us, improving our lives, improving our relationships. And we still find the need to practice pretty much daily.
No shortage of opportunities in this world to practice relational skills, because ultimately relational skills are how we make our relationships work. How do we make our relationship with Christ work? How do we make our relationship with our family and our friends work? And so, friends, relational skills ultimately are a meal that we have to taste and experience. We have to practice these skills. And that's really where things start to change.
Yeah, I think that's one of the more unique things about what we do, both on this podcast and at Thrive Today, our ministry, is that practice piece of these relational skills, because it's a lifelong journey. We may have to learn them. We may be missing some that we have to add in, and we see some big growth in those moments when we're adding something new to our lives and our repertoire of our tool belt. But then we still have to keep practicing. What else would you say is unique about what we do and what the podcast and the ministry?
Yeah, the podcast really is meant to give some context. What are these relational skills? People really want to know often before they're willing to practice. Like, what is this stuff? What is some of the brain science behind this? What is some of the scripture behind this? Why should I do this? And that's really why these stories are so important, because it's people who are learning and using relational skills. God's using this to change their lives. And so that's really the core of what this podcast is about. We want to share the good stuff with our listeners. And I think people appreciate that it's short. We keep these short. We're aiming for 10 minutes, give or take. And that's something you can easily listen to while you're preparing a meal or driving to work or working out, whatever it is that you do. These are really bite-sized nuggets that really give people a good taste of what relational skills are all about.
Sometimes I can even listen to a couple of them while I'm in the pickup line for school.
That's it. That's it. And I like to listen to them when I go for walks. And so these are really good, simple little practices that people can learn and do. And you know what I appreciate? We always give people resources. So if you want to learn more about certain topics or certain skills, we always add those resources at the end of the podcast.
So we've been practicing this for quite a while. And like I said, we're still learning, but we love getting to tell the stories. And usually our podcasts involve a specific story around a skill. Today is just more of a reflection of the past year and looking ahead. What are you looking forward to in the new year? What are you looking ahead to as we continue to do the
There's a
podcast?
lot we haven't yet gotten to when we've been talking about relational skills. So we've talked a lot about some of the foundational relational skills, but you know what? There's a lot of ground ahead of us to cover. And I'm really excited to go into a little more of the intricacies of learning relational skills, practicing and spreading relational skills. So I'm really looking forward to more testimonies, but I'm also looking forward to teasing out some very simple practices that you can do so that you recover and live with joy and peace.
One of the things I love about the stories is that it paints a picture for what's possible. Sometimes people don't even realize that something different than their day-to-day experience is possible. And I love hearing the stories of change and transformation when people added something that they didn't have before to the mix, and just how it changed their day-to-day.
That's really the redemptive part of this journey for a lot of people is we're learning skills later in life that our families just didn't have. And so we've learned some really unhelpful responses or coping mechanisms along the way. So learning these relational skills changes life. It changes your world. It changes your walk with the Lord. All kinds of good stuff grows in this garden. So that's why I really appreciate the stories, because it gives some framework for people to go, oh, that's how this skill works. That's how this skill could help me. And I really feel like that brings it home. Our brain likes stories. Your brain thinks in stories and narrative. So it really helps people to have some context for what are these relational skills all about and what's the potential for learning these skills.
Anything else as we're looking forward or back that you want to highlight or reflect on?
Yeah, I think just a word of encouragement, friends, that a little bit goes a long way. I say that a lot. A little bit goes a long way. And so the goal here as you hear these stories and learn these skills is that a little bit of practice can make a world of difference. And I love it when a lot of our testimonies include that concept that a little bit of practice here, a little bit of work here leads to great growth. And so a little bit of practice in your life can lead to big changes, more joy, and greater peace.
I love that. So if you're new here, if this is the first podcast you've listened to, I'd encourage you to go back, listen to the first couple episodes, and then just if you want, you can always binge some episodes, because I mean it's easy to do. In a long car drive, you can listen to 5 or 6 of them.
Easily. Yeah.
And you can catch up, or you can just jump in from where we are. We release them weekly, so you can jump in the current and keep going. And some follow-up resources from here. The podcast is honestly one of the big follow-up resources as a great introductory place if you're just plugging in. We've got the 28 Days to Joy resource, which is a great introductory place. And the Foundational 5 course. All of those are just great kind of introductory ways to get your feet wet in the world of relational skills if this is new to you. If you've been following us for a while and you've been a listener for a while, we would love to have you share this. This is a great place in the flow of the podcast to invite friends, celebrate with us, share with friends on Facebook, share on social media, on your favorite platform, share your favorite episode, share some of the takeaways that you're getting from this. This is just a great place to let new people jump in. Any place is a great place to let new people jump in, but we would love for you to celebrate with us by sharing this with friends, because we want to have an impact for more people.
That's right. That's really our heart, is to share the good stuff and share what God has used to change our lives. We want to see God change your life and your family and your community. So thank you, friends, for being with us. Thank you for your support. And may God just bless you on this journey of joy.